Welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving into a nation that is literally always on the move, Brazil. But we aren't just talking about physical movement across borders, though. As you'll see, there's plenty of that. What we're really exploring today is how the massive flows of people, both moving out and moving in, combined with a massive shift in industry, have totally transformed Brazil from a quiet agricultural society into a modern urban powerhouse. It's a story about ambition, survival, and incredible progress, all built entirely on movement.
Okay, let's map out where we're headed. We've got four main stops today: Brazilians abroad, refugees in Brazil, industrialization, and urbanization.
Starting off with Part 1, Brazilians abroad.
To truly grasp the sheer scale of this outward migration, just wrap your head around this number for a second: 4.5 million. That is how many Brazilians are currently living outside their home country right now. It's a staggering demographic shift when you think about it. That's millions of individual choices to pack up everything and start over from scratch in a completely foreign land.
So, where's everybody going? Well, the heavy hitters are pretty much what you might expect: the United States, Japan, Paraguay, and Portugal. But the data throws some real curveballs too. Get this, there is exactly one Brazilian living in North Korea, while countries like Afghanistan and Libya currently have zero. But we also have to be real about the day-to-day experience here. Despite all their hustle, many Brazilians arriving in these top destinations face intense prejudice and often find themselves stuck with grueling entry-level jobs. And this brings us to a really critical concept called fuga de cerebros, or brain drain. You see, it's not just about folks looking for entry-level work. We're talking about a serious loss of domestic talent. Highly trained professionals, like scientists and top-tier researchers, are leaving Brazil simply because they're looking for better professional valuation and resources somewhere else. And when they leave, they take all that hard-earned expertise right out the door with them.
Moving into Part 2, Refugees in Brazil. Now, if we put these two flows of people side by side, the contrast is actually pretty wild. On one hand, you've got Brazilians leaving mostly for economic bumps and career moves. But on the flip side, the folks arriving into Brazil, they're largely doing it for sheer survival. We're talking about people fleeing active wars, deep political persecution, and severe humanitarian crises back home.
So who's actually arriving? Primarily, we're seeing people from Venezuela, Syria, Haiti, and the Congo. And Brazil steps up here with a specific legal framework called the Lei do Refúgio, a law from 1997 that formally guarantees access to public health, education, and the right to work. Operationally, they've got programs like Operation Acolhida, or Operation Welcome, which has been an absolute lifeline in the border state of Roraima for managing the massive influx of Venezuelans. And of course, the UN Refugee Agency and various NGOs are heavily involved in backing this all up. Now, let's be realistic. The day-to-day reality on the ground is incredibly tough. These refugees face severe prejudice, massive language barriers, and sky-high unemployment. But you really have to look at the whole picture, because their contributions are undeniable. They bring vibrant cultural diversity, provide an essential labor force, and they're constantly opening small businesses that kickstart local economies. The big takeaway? A thriving society really relies on smart integration policies to turn those initial challenges into shared community strengths.
All right, Part 3, Industrialization.
Let's pivot for a second and look inward. For the longest time, Brazil was basically just a giant farm exporting raw agricultural goods. So how in the world did it morph into this diverse, internationally connected industrial powerhouse?
The timeline here is actually super fascinating. Before the 1930s, coffee was absolutely king, but crucially, the cash generated from all that coffee actually bankrolled the future industries. Post-1930, Brazil goes through what economists call late industrialization. They started with import substitution, which is basically a fancy way of saying they finally started making products at home that they used to buy from other countries. Fast forward to the mid-20th century, the government steps in to create these massive base industries. And today, Brazil is deeply integrated globally, packed with foreign factories, and boasts domestic high-tech giants like Embraer, one of the biggest airplane manufacturers on the planet.
What's absolutely crucial to understand here is the whole concept of base industries. The government realized, hey, you can't have a factory building cars or washing machines if you don't have the raw materials processed first. So they backed these massive pillars to supply everyone else. You've got CSN pumping out essential iron and steel. You have Vale pulling vital minerals straight from the soil. And you've got Petrobras extracting the oil and gas to fuel the whole operation. Those three giants were literally the foundation for everything that came next.
And once you've got those base materials flowing, boom, the transformation industries just absolutely explode. These are the factories taking raw stuff and turning it into the consumer goods we all buy. We're talking metallurgy, cellulose for paper, a massive food industry transforming raw crops into ready-to-eat meals, footwear for both the locals and the export market, and a huge automotive sector churning out cars.
Location mattered immensely too. Take the Zona Franca de Manaus, for example. By dangling some really attractive tax and economic incentives, the government was able to pull major factory installations right into the heart of the Amazon, which acted as a massive engine for regional economic development in that specific area.
Which brings us to our final piece, Part 4, Urbanization. There's a massive, direct domino effect happening here. Industrialization acted like a giant magnet. It triggered a massive rural exodus. People saw the factories being built, they saw where the money was going, and they just left the countryside. This wasn't just a simple change in jobs, it was a total, top-to-bottom transformation of Brazilian society, from a traditionally rural lifestyle to a heavily urban one.
It's a really simple 1, 2, 3 progression when you break it down. Step 1, industries get built, instantly creating thousands of localized jobs. Step 2, the rural exodus kicks into high gear as people chase those jobs and better living conditions. Step 3, everybody needs a place to live near those factories, resulting in a super rapid concentration of workers. The cities just explode, expanding wildly in both population and physical size, creating these massive urban agglomerations.
But here's the catch. Not all city growth looks the same. In fully developed countries, urbanization generally happened pretty slowly. It was planned out, and infrastructure mostly kept pace with the growth. But in underdeveloped and developing contexts, like what Brazil went through, the growth was insanely fast and totally disorganized. The cities just weren't ready for millions of people to show up all at once. And that led to severe growing pains, a chronic lack of decent housing, poor sanitation, jammed transportation, and some pretty heavy environmental degradation. Even with all that chaos, though, you just can't deny the magnetic pull of the city. Why do people stay? Because even a struggling urban area usually offers way better access to the basics than the rural areas they left behind. We are talking about critical things like treated water, reliable electricity, formal education, centralized healthcare clinics, and of course those vital employment opportunities that kicked off the migration in the first place.
So what is the ultimate result of all this? It boils down to one absolutely staggering statistic. Because of that hyper-accelerated industrialization and the rural exodus that followed, today a massive 80% of Brazil's population lives in urban areas. Just 20% is out in the country. It is the very visible, undeniable result of a century of relentless transformation.
And that leaves us with one massive question. We've tracked these incredible flows, people moving out for better lives, refugees moving in for safety, industries rising from the ground up, and cities exploding to house the workers. But movement never actually stops, right? So as migration patterns keep shifting, as industries evolve, and as these massive cities continue to push their boundaries, what exactly is the Brazil of tomorrow going to look like? Will it finally conquer its urban challenges and truly integrate its diverse new populations? That is the next chapter in this incredible story. Thanks for joining me on today's Explainer, and I'll catch you next time.